Live. Welcome back. Welcome back to Empty Screening. I missed I think the last two or just one.
I think
Something like
so.
that.
Cuz
Yeah,
there
we
was there was
recorded
some
a
anime
Spider-Man
weeb stuff that
episode.
I did not consent to. Tainted the channel with that. You
Boo!
cretins.
No, 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 no,
No,
no.
that's one of the best shows I've ever seen, honestly. I even think you'd like it, Elliot. It's so
I
good.
I I there's a good chance I would. I just like dogging on anime because it gets visceral reactions from people and it makes me
That's
chuckle.
that is fair. People get passionate about anime. It's hard
They
not to
do.
get passionate about.
And people also get passionate about Christopher Nolan, which is the reason we've reconvened this fine afternoon, all up in Alaska, mind you. Every single one of us are in different rooms, but in the great state of Alaska to discuss Christopher Nolan's Alaskan movie, Insomnia,
Yes.
Yeah.
as well as many
It's fun
others.
that we're I mean, Regan, I looked up the filming location of Insomnia, and quite a bit of it was filmed in Canada actually, but some of it was filmed nearby Ketchikan, which is pretty cool. So shout out
Dang.
Insomnia. But
Yeah,
yeah,
this
is
is the
there
most. This is the most that anybody's ever going to talk about Insomnia. So
definitely, yeah, Insomnia is like the most ignored movie
I
in
like
Christopher
Insomnia.
Nolan's catalog. That and following probably, but we'll get to that one too. But is there a more popular filmmaker on the planet today than Christopher Nolan? Probably not, right?
Probably
He's
not.
number one.
The more you get into filmmaking or like kind of into that world, you get some Fincher. I feel like is one of the Tarantino's another one that's still kind of around. But
Spielberg.
I think
Spielberg.
Spielberg too. But just like actively making stuff, Nolan's that dude right now for the
Yeah.
normies.
He's kind of like uh, he's just that guy. You could mention Steven Spielberg or even like James Cameron to regular people, and they might know him, then they
Yeah,
might not. But I feel like most people just know who Christopher Nolan is. He's a very ubiquitous with movie making right now, which I think is kind of cool because he is a really cool director. He makes really big, huge blockbusters, original movies as well. Um, it's fun to see somebody of that makes it as grand movies as him be as popular as he is.
I was just going to say he's what I would refer to as a Cinemaxer. He's always Cinemaxing. He doesn't know how to do little stuff. He's always going all out, for better or for worse. He's Cinemaxing all over the place.
he's super ambitious for sure, and he's been around for a lot longer than like looking back at when Batman Begins came out. I was really kind of surprised to see that that was like just a few years after I was born. So he's been at the top of his game for a long time. And if you're just in a intro level film art analysis class and you want to fit in, just spam the Nolan button. That's what they it sounds like they do over there at the college.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting with Nolan. I feel like all three of us all really like a lot of his movies, I'd say.
Of course, yeah.
But none of us would go as like full on Nolan fanboys, right? Where none of us would say that he's the best director of all time
I
or
wouldn't,
anything
would
like
any of
that. So
you?
I think we could come at it from a
Okay.
interesting perspective of we respect him as an artist, even if we don't love everything that he's done. I think that can allow us to bring some nuance to this conversation, maybe.
Yeah, and I think it will be very contentious as well. Just with, I know, at least in some of our rankings, the first one we ever did was Burton. David and I did that, and our rankings were a lot similar than I would have thought. That was also 20 plus entries to this list. We've got 13 here. I wasn't even aware there were 13 as we were gonna do this episode. I was going through them and I
Yeah,
was like, wait, there's two I just actually haven't even seen. So I had to rush and go see those. But I feel like there will be a pretty large disparity between a lot of ours, especially with three people. Did you have a certain way you wanted to do the order, David, for it?
Yeah, so what I was thinking of doing is We're going to go through the movies chronologically. So we'll start with the following and we'll end with the
Okay.
Odyssey. And we'll have this visualizer on screen so everybody can keep track of where we ranked everything. And as we go through movie to movie, we'll discuss it and say where it is on our personal Nolan ranked. Well, Regan, how about you introduce our first movie for us today then?
Oh boy. Okay. Well, once upon a time, Christopher Nolan was just like us, struggling filmmaker, making a small little film on the weekends with his friends and doing almost everything himself. The result of that was following 1998, his directorial debut, shot, edited, written, and directed by him. It is for a beginning of Christopher Nolan's filmography. I think it's very telling that it is a Nolan film because there's a lot of the elements that he likes to play with in that movie. The story's told out of order. The editing is very jarring and kind of weird sometimes. The characters are paper thin and have barely any motivation. They have the simplest of motivations, so it's really easy
Yeah.
to understand the story. And these are all things that have continued throughout Nolan's filmography, for better or for worse. And for me, at least, Following really does feel like a student film. And I think that's both in its favor and its detriment because it feels like a student film in the way that it's impressive that it is as uh, big as it is as a debut, but it also feels like the exact kind of student film people in my old video classes would have made, and ones that I would have sat there and been like, yeah, okay.
I think one of the elements that I like from Following is that it's just like a passion project. Like you can tell that Nolan barely had any money to make this. I looked it up and it was a budget of anywhere from 3,500 to 6,000 pounds. I'm not sure how that converts to dollars, but just like a very small budget, and you can tell. And it's just a kid wanting to make a movie, and I like that element of the movie. But I agree that I think the plot is pretty just loosey goosey. It's kind of all over the place. In a way, it kind of reminded me of Fight Club. There are some strange plot elements that can
Yeah.
tie into Fight Club. I think Jeremy Theobald and Alex Haw, who played like the two main guys in the movie, are both pretty good. And actually, Alex Haw appeared in at least a few other of Christopher Nolan's movies, including Inception. So I like that even his day oneers get to pop into the rest of his filmography as well. And the movie is short. It's only an hour and 10 minutes. So it's not like too insufferably long or pretentious or anything like that. It keeps it brief, which I appreciate. I think this is pretty middle of the road. It's just sort of fine. Completely no reason to watch this unless if you want to see every single Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah. I when I'm watching any movie, typically my enjoyment can be heavily tied to characters first above anything else. Like characters typically the first thing that I'm looking for. Plot consistency is typically another thing that I'm looking for. And then like visual style and like special effects and those kind of things get a little further down the list for me. So I definitely would agree that the characters in this are pretty flat, but even then, I think this can be chalked up to the performances. There was one that stood out, and I don't know any of their names, and that is honestly not a it's kind of a slight on character right there. If you don't know their names, they obviously didn't stand out too much, but friend robber, I'll call him friend robber. I thought he had some fun kind of wacky moments, and so I was always kind of invested when there was a scene with him or when he was on the phone. I was like, man, especially at first, it's like you don't really know what he's going to do, but then once you kind of understand who he is, what he does is never a surprise. Like it matches his character pretty well. So I thought it was pretty solid, middle of the road for me too. Because while there will be like very high budget movies and far more ambitious stories coming up, I think this one overall is more consistent than some of those. Even though the bar isn't as high, but then when Nolan shoots for the moon and is actually able to stick the landing, those obviously just kind of dominate this one. I put it at number 9 of 13.
I have it at number 12.
I would also put it at number 12. And the funniest thing about Following is that the sound design in this movie is actually really good.
Yeah,
Comparing to some other movies we'll get to.
pretty much every other
So,
movie we'll get to.
yeah.
It's also funny, just a cool little detail. One of the characters does have like a Batman logo on his door going into his apartment. And I thought that was kind of a fun little nod at what's to come a little bit later down the line. So yeah, as like a introductory, I think this is a perfectly fine movie. Okay, so up next on the list though is a much more critically acclaimed movie. For a lot of people, I feel like this is the first Christopher Nolan movie. This is where he got his budget. It's where he got to start working with some big name actors, really clever ideas and scripts. That is, of course, the movie Memento, which came out the year I was born. So basically, my whole life, Christopher Nolan has been making critically acclaimed, really popular movies. And Memento, honestly, is one of my favorite Christopher Nolan projects. I really enjoy this movie. It follows a guy who is trying to avenge his wife. The problem is that he has memory loss. He can only remember up to like 2 minutes of time. And so, which leads to some very fun editing decisions. And you can also make the complaint that this is where some of his flaws start to show through. And I wish he would just simplify his plots a little bit. They're too convoluted, they're too all over the place. But I think in the case of Memento, this is actually my favorite time that Nolan has told a story non-linearly. I think it really works in this case. It leads to certain reveals that happen towards the end of the movie feeling a lot more climactic and exciting and interesting than if they were told in order. It also makes you feel disoriented like the lead character does, which I think is really fun. Shout out Guy Pearce. You know, I haven't really seen him in too many movies, but the two I have seen him in, this one and The Brutalist, I think he's just fantastic in both of them. And Carrie Ann Moss, I also think is really good in this movie. It's just a really solid, fun Nolan-y thriller where I really feel like this is where he laid the groundwork. It's like, yeah, this is my directorial style. This is what I bring to the table. He hasn't quite reached full set piece directorial Nolan yet, but his ideas and themes are here in this movie still. So I'm quite a big fan of this one.
Yeah, this is where I agree that I think his non-linear style plays the best because at least for the rest of every other movie he's done, I feel like there's at least some point in the movie where they have some scene that's taken out of order, but I don't think ever again is it actually like kind of a part of the story, or like in this the non-linear storytelling is the story itself, and I think it's really cool in that sense, and I think it takes a lot of inspiration from many movies from the 70s, but also it's kind of a trailblazer for that time. I think it's really, really different. So I'm quite a fan. Once again, I mean, I think I saw this for the first time 2 years ago, and I did not rewatch it in the making up of this list, so I can't remember a single character's name in this entire thing. I can barely remember any motivations outside of the protagonist. But I do really remember enjoying at least the premise, as well as like the execution for it. I thought it was very exciting to keep track of all these things, mind bending in a great way. And this is about middle of the road for me as well. I have this at number 7.
I have this at number 4, but what's your, or number 5, sorry. How about you, Regan? What are your thoughts on Memento?
You guys kind of basically summed it up really well, but I will say that what I really like about Memento is that it's the perfect marriage between Nolan's style and then like the feel of Following. So it feels small enough like an indie movie, which I really like the vibe of,
I agree.
but it's still like really intriguing with Nolan's style intact in it, and it stands out in his filmography because of that. And I kind of miss this Nolan
Yeah.
because I think you could only classify the first three movies he made in this category as him like working on a smaller scale, and I kind of miss it. I kind of wish that whatever movie he makes next would kind of go back to this because I think it'd be like really fresh to experience that again. But well, I guess we'll see. And I actually align with Elliot on this one. This is at number 7 on my list
Okay.
as well.
So it's a little bit lower for you guys than it is for me. I have it a little bit higher on the list. You want to
Okay.
cover Insomnia, Elliot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Insomnia I watched for the first time up in Alaska last year when I was looking at Alaskan movies. Cause I was like, here I am driving me bus for the cruise people. And in between getting pestered by angry tourists or just exhausting days. It was fun to see that there were some other people that came up to Alaska and were struggling with the daylight out here and having a hard time sleeping because can definitely relate to that. Insomnia, I don't have much to say on the premise here. It is another adaptation if I'm correct. It was a movie before this as well as a book. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
it's actually Nolan's only remake and also Nolan's only screenplay that he didn't have any involvement with. All the other ones he wrote or at least co-wrote. So,
He did some uncredited rewrites on this.
okay. Okay.
this definitely feels like the least Nolan in a lot of the movies here. It definitely and I can notice that with some of the character work as well. I feel like it is a little deeper in certain aspects, but I also feel like you're not messing with time as much or the editing style that he has as much. Like it definitely, I could have been told that a different director had made this movie, and I wouldn't be like, oh, really, because it seems a lot like Christopher Nolan. So it's one I enjoy enough. I think it's kind of a mid movie, but there's still things I really like about it, including the atmosphere and the aesthetic. I feel like it captures Alaska really well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that because I think this movie peaks in like the first 30 minutes with the sequence in the fog and they're
Yeah.
trying to find the killer
Yeah,
and he and his partner are just blindly searching with their pointing their guns. I really like that sequence and I don't think anything past that manages to reach that height again
there's
except for
definitely other
maybe
memorable moments near the end. I think
yeah, I
especially the
do like
driving as he's trying to stay awake. I feel like that's one
Mm.
that is pretty memorable, as well as like some of the final encounters as he's
Yeah.
swimming and the logs are like rolling on top of him.
yeah,
That was
that
The
like cool
part.
logs was what
walk.
I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do like the how the insomnia and the sun has a deeper meaning. Like it's not just uh, him not being able to sleep, but the sun represents his guilt
Yeah.
in that he knows what he did, and that's what's really keeping him up. It's not the sun or anything like that. It's just him trying to come to the terms with the fact that he actually like killed his partner and whatever spoilers I guess but I will say that I feel like Al Pacino could have gone a little bit more hammy in this and I would probably enjoy it a little
Dunkachino
better.
himself.
Yeah, like he's honestly pretty subdued and I kind of would have preferred if he went a little more over the top. And as you mentioned, there are some different character stuff in this not very similar to other Nolan movies because the female character in this, played by Hilary Swank, is actually interesting,
Yeah.
and she actually has a big role to play in this movie. So shout out to her because she's like the only female character that is one of the only female characters that is actually interesting in a Nolan movie.
I agree with everything you guys have been saying about it. I like the movie quite a bit. I'm actually going to differ on Regan a little bit here in that I think Al Pacino's a lot of fun here. And I liked his more subdued performance compared to sometimes his more flamboyant, showy roles. I like that he's a little bit more subdued here. One of the big things that I derived enjoyment from rewatching Insomnia was just how many similarities there were to Twin Peaks. So let me list off a few of them for you. So the story follows the investigation of a 17-year-old murdered girl who was discovered wrapped in plastic. It's set in a small northwestern town known for its lumber mill. The detective is brought from out of town to help the cops with the case. There's even like a Bobby like boyfriend character who's initially suspected for being the murderer. And there's like several other things that happen throughout the course of the movie where I was like, oh, so this is Christopher Nolan's like Twin Peaks fan movie. And I know he is a fan of David Lynch, so I like that there is at least some Twin Peaksy vibes in this movie. I don't think it's very much a genre film, and I think it doesn't ever excel in some of the genre conventions. There's nothing in this movie that makes me think, wow, that's one of the best detective movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But I think it's very solid and a lot of fun. So I like it.
Yeah. I've got this at number 8, so actually right between Following and Memento. So that's
Okay.
my
I have
7, 8,
this
and
at
9.
11.
This is my number 10. Now, time to get to where he really broke out because after this, Warner Brothers decided, hey, we really want to make Batman a good movie again.
Batman had
So
fallen on
they,
hard times.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a rough age to be a Batman fan in that time because all you had was Tim Burton and then whatever the heck
Praise
Joel
be.
Schumacher was doing
Okay, can we just
after
appreciate
that.
Arnie Freeze just for a little bit? Might be one
I
of the
I can
greatest
have a lot of
things.
fun with Batman and Robin,
I was
even
gonna
though it
say
is
I
like
watched it 3 times last year just because it's one that I can just watch again and again and derive some form of enjoyment from.
but
Yeah.
definitely not a Batman movie that's meant to be taken seriously.
No, no.
So Batman Begins, beginning of the Dark Knight trilogy, and I think this is one of Nolan's more underrated movies.
I
A
agree.
lot of people are quick to point out the Dark Knight and how well executed that movie is, and it definitely is. But Batman Begins lays out the groundwork very well. It does a lot of things I think just people don't appreciate, like the fact that we just mentioned Memento. It does the nonlinear storytelling really well. I think Batman Begins does the nonlinear storytelling very well as well because there's a really cool way to show Nolan's style, and he definitely shows that he thought about it before executing that part of the story, and then like farther into the movie it settles into the the linear story. But it really works in the beginning of the movie to kind of jump back and forth to how Bruce gets traumatized, and then how he meets the League of Shadows, and then he returns to the city and becomes Batman. And uh, yeah, Christian Bale is amazing. He is a good Batman.
And a good Bruce.
We can get it. Yeah, he's a great Bruce. I think he might be a better Bruce than a Batman, honestly.
Yeah.
But well, and I will say in this movie, he's a great Batman. Batman is really cool in this movie. I do have to shout out Cosmonaut Marcus because the way he talks about the Dark Knight trilogy, at least, kind of reflects how I feel about it. Not completely, but I do agree with him in the point that Batman is the coolest in this trilogy in Batman Begins, and I love the entire like final 40 minutes where he's scrambling to save Gotham and save the water supply from being blown up or whatever. So yeah, it's a great movie. Definitely slept on.
Yeah, I think it does get overshadowed quite a bit by its sequel, but is really solid on its own right. I will also point out that this is the first collaboration he had with Hans Zimmer, which will continue on for many movies on into the future, as we are well aware. It also feels like this is the first time that he started collecting actors that he would have appear in all of his movies, like Christian Bale, Michael Caine, uh, Killian Murphy. These are actors who appear in many, many other Nolan movies and first had their start here. So, in a lot of regards, even though this is like his first big blockbuster movie, this is his first time working with Hans Zimmer. It's his first time with these actors. It feels like the first true huge Nolan picture. Um, I also like that Gotham in this movie, unlike in Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, feels more like comic book Gotham. It feels more kind of gothic and ethereal and weird and has strange architecture. The other movies just go for a more grounded look, which I think is cool too. I like that approach to Gotham as well, but I like this version of Gotham quite a bit as well. So yeah, I think it's a very solid movie. I agree with basically everything that Regan said. I think it's fun. It's very much laid down the groundwork for so many other superhero movies going forward, especially like Iron Man and MCU Phase One superhero movies. I feel like take a lot from the structure of this film. So I'm a fan. I think it's pretty good.
There's something special about superhero movies at this time, because this is around when we were getting like some of the better X-Men movies as well as the Raimi Spider-Mans. And so definitely like a great time to love superhero movies. So this one will actually flip depending on the day, Dark Knight as to my favorite like Nolan Batman movie. It's really on what I'm in the mood for. If I'm in the mood for Joker, cuz like he's what carries the Dark Knight, but just about everything else swings in Batman Begins' favor. From, I think, the backstory, I think the plot is a little more sound than The Dark Knight when you really think about it. I think I do like Gotham a lot more. I like Batman a lot more. And then this is where you get some of like the really neat establishing blocks, such as I think Commissioner Gordon is a standout in this movie as well. This is when you kind of set him up, and I think it's a really, I mean, the new Batman, like the Pattinson Batman, has an awesome Commissioner Gordon, but I don't think we would have had anything like him if it wasn't for this kind of reshaped the idea of Commissioner Gordon and some of those other characters that are pretty intrinsic to the Batman brand. I also think Scarecrow is awesome, and I would have really liked to see more Scarecrow, and especially in future Batman movies. Like he's made Scarecrow one of my favorite like superhero villains, which is pretty impressive considering he gets what 10-15 minutes of screen time total, maybe less. I remember seeing like a figure for it, and it is staggeringly low how much time the Scarecrow gets, but he utilizes just about every minute with the Scarecrow, creating that Batman atmosphere, because Batman without his villains, I think is not that crazy of a superhero, but I think one of the reasons that Batman has such a cultural footprint is because he just has the coolest villain of probably any superhero. So big fan of Batman Begins, and like I said, depending on the day, it's my favorite Batman movie.
Pretty high praise. Do you guys like Ra's al Ghul as Liam Neeson, or
I
played
like
by
Liam
Liam Neeson?
Neeson's
Are you a fan of his
performance
character?
more than I like the character.
Yeah, I would agree because I know how Ra's al Ghul is supposed to be in the comics, and that Liam Neeson does not fit that definition of what
Okay.
that character's supposed to be. But for the movie and what it is, it works. It does work.
Okay, I don't know much about the comic version of
I
it,
don't
but
know. I
I
know the
always,
Lego
yeah, I
Batman
think Liam
version.
Neeson is great. Yeah, I think Liam Neeson is great in the role, but not the strongest villain. I so much prefer Scarecrow, and I think even though he makes brief cameo appearances in the other movie, it's just kind of disappointing that he doesn't get enough screen time as he deserves in this
I
trilogy.
would have
So
liked would
yeah,
have
shout
liked more
out Killian
Scarecrow.
Murphy. He's one of the best. So where do you guys have this one on your list?
I would put it at number 9. And that's simply just because, and that could change because I do flip flop on this movie a lot.
Yeah,
I have not rewatched Batman Begins in a while, and I honestly think if I rewatched it probably like tonight or
it'd
tomorrow,
climb.
it'd probably go up a little bit.
Interesting.
It definitely overtake Memento and the other movie
Oh
I have
yeah.
above it, and some of the other ones maybe. But uh, right now it's at 9, and that's only
Okay.
because I haven't rewatched it in a while.
It has also been a while since I rewatched Batman Begins, but I have it at number 10. But I also want to clarify that there's only one movie on my list that I would consider to be not very good. The
Oh.
rest of them I like quite a lot. And Batman Begins, it firmly falls into the category of I like it a lot. So it's number 10 on my list.
This is my number 4, and
Okay.
it could flip, like I said, depending on the day, to number 3. So this is either 4 or 3 for me, right up there at the top. I think this is one of his better movies.
Very
Okay.
which
nice.
is
I love it.
especially impressive when you consider like the character of Batman and just revitalizing an entire franchise, which he was
Yeah,
able to do, and creating something so iconic that like Batman as a character was changed forever in a way that I really like. Like I really like this Batman. I think he's awesome.
I do too. Yeah, Nolan was the man for the job.
Yeah.
He did a great thing with it. Okay, up next, this is going to be a fun one. We have The Prestige.
Hmm.
So The Prestige follows
Prestige.
two rival magicians played by Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman as they're trying to one up each other and try and come up with the best magician act. Um, so another common thing you'll find in Nolan's movies is how the jobs the characters have in the films could be translated to actual filmmaking jobs. And oftentimes his movies read as like a plea for himself to spend less time making movies and more time hanging out with his family. Like the movie is something he has to do so he can go and spend some time with his family. And I think you could read The Prestige in a similar regard. Especially since what is a movie maker if not a magician, somebody who's conjuring up magic? And I think Nolan really falls into this role best with this movie. The way he weaves this narrative around is so fun and exciting and interesting, and watching it for the first time is nothing short of incredible. Like to when they reveal the plot twists of what's actually going on with Christian Bale's character in particular, it is kind of a magical moment. I really like this film. It's the only Nolan movie that has like a Victorian setting, which I think is a lot of fun. It's the only Nolan movie that has David Bowie, which automatically bumps it up a few places on my list. I really enjoy this one. So, Prestige, I think it's a blast.
The Prestige is a fluke. It is so much better than any other Nolan movie by a long shot. And he has some other good movies, but I think hands down this is his best. It dog walks everything else. Just in terms of like this is what I'm talking about when the ambition is executed perfectly. Like the amount of twists that he has is not only structured, like the three act like I love writing structures. I think it's really cool. Like the more you learn about him, the more you start to see him in movies, and like the themes that he has for each act, and the way that he parallels that to the acts of a magician. I think it makes this movie magical for me. The characters, and this is when his brother did the script for. Am I right? The
Yes.
characters in this
Yeah.
one are astonishingly good for a Nolan movie. I can't think of characters I appreciate more in any other one, except for there's two others that I might put up here with The Prestige. But every character in this movie, I feel like I have a good grasp on them by the end of it. I can see changes throughout all of them, including like minor roles, like Andy Serkis's character. I think is a very fascinating character that has a message and an idea. But then your two main magicians, Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, which might be the best performances in any of Nolan's movies. Like best characters, best performances, best plot, best twists. Like this movie, my parents told me about it. They're like, this is the, my mom specifically said, I'm about to show you a movie. This is the only movie that I've ever finished and said I need to watch it again like right now. And it with repeat viewings, it gets better and better and better and you just realize how tight this script is. Not to mention it is gorgeous. Like the stuff that they do with the electricity in this movie as well as the final shots are so haunting and pretty that you could just frame every single one of them. I can't praise the Prestige enough. Spoilers, this is my number one, like, firmly. I don't think it'll ever get replaced.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's number 4 on my list, so also very high. I love this Nolan one. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Regan?
First off, I want to say I think this is the best Michael Caine performance in
Yeah.
a Christopher Nolan movie. I think he he's not just playing like Alfred or Michael Caine in this movie. It feels really fresh because he's kind of in this position where he's in between this war between Angier and Borden, and he just wants them to settle it. He just wants to do his job, and I like how his character acts throughout the movie. So shout out Michael Caine, and this is definitely one of Christian Bale's best performances
Ever. And
Um,
he's an insane actor. Like that's
yeah,
Mhm.
I definitely agree with you because uh, Nolan's Jonathan Nolan puts in so much work into some of these movies, and he is often overlooked, and he does not deserve get enough credit for what he does for some of these movies. This is okay. So this is where I start delivering some crazy takes because I love this movie. The first time I watched it, it blew my mind. It's my number five. I want to clarify. This is my number five, but I don't think this movie works well if you rewatch it a ton.
that's
And
crazy.
my reason for this is because it's really cool to watch it again and see how it plays out if you know the twist and
Mhm.
like trying to figure out which Christian Bale is which and in each scene and whatnot. Like that's a lot of fun to do. But once you figure that out, um, the movie straight up tells you at the very beginning what this twist is. And it's exactly what a magician does. You dress it up, make it look fancy, but the answer is right in front of you. And you can interpret that as Nolan being smart about it and how he presents it, and that's all good and well. But if you rewatch it so many times, it just you kind of just know what's going to happen. And I think it benefits from having a space of time where you can just like leave it and then revisit it after like I don't know 6 months to 6 to 8 months somewhere there and revisit it again and be able to enjoy it as it's supposed to be like a fresh first watch or watching it with somebody who hasn't seen it. That's
That's
also a
big
lot of
too.
fun. I think that definitely helps it as well because then you're able to experience it for the first time, and I think that helps it. I just think for myself, rewatching it by myself, I can't really do that because
That's
uh,
unfortunate.
I can't like I can appreciate that as a movie, Nolan presents it really well, but I can also appreciate and realize the fact that it is really obvious. Like once you know the twist, it's really obvious to see like how he dresses it up and how he like shows you the answer and all of that. So it's a fine line, and I don't think rewatches help that fine line very much.
If your entire source of investment in that movie is the twist, then I can see how you could be a little um not super thrilled about seeing it other times. However, I think the themes and the characters are really what like the struggle for ambition and the toll that that has on other people, as well as like the competitive nature of the two. Like the performances that they have, I just think like every character in that movie is so fascinating to me that obviously that first time you watch it before you know anything is super special and magical, but I'd completely have to disagree that the twist is what makes this a good movie because even without it, if they'd revealed that at the very, very beginning, I would still think it is a great movie. Like, even if I knew the twist going in, it's just that more special with the twist. And it's not the only one. Like, there are multiple twists that they have here. And then being kind of a meta to like magic tricks, I think is a fun thing where once you know it changes everything for you. But whereas in a cheap magic trick, when you know the trick, it can obviously be less enjoyable. But in a setting where you're playing off of characters and you're thrown into a spectacle that I think is really, really cozy and fun, it just makes it even better.
And I agree. I agree with you. Like it is a gorgeous movie. The production design is some of the best of Nolan's career, maybe the best
Yeah.
of Nolan's career. But I will say, I think Scarlett Johansson's character is probably one of the worst female characters in Nolan's movies. She only exists as a source of conflict between them, and she herself as a character, I don't think offers much besides uh, helping apply to what the big twist eventually is, and just being that source of conflict for the other characters. And I think
More or less, she
everyone
is an
else,
agent that is making decisions based on and reactionary decisions instead of ones that are just part of the script, I think.
yeah, she just feels like somebody who's being acted upon and not really being able to be her own character. And on the other side of that, though, Rebecca Hall, who plays Christian Bale's wife, she is excellent in this
Yeah.
movie for the very little material that she's given. And I will say that this is an adaptation of a book, and I've read that book. And I do think in book form, like the twist and the way the themes work and how the magic trick of the story is presented, I think it works a little better in book form because you're able to hide it a little bit better within the words rather than being able to see everything on screen and being able to decipher it as such. Because I do think it's possible for somebody to figure out the twist before it happens
And
at
I
the end
think
of the movie.
that is one thing I strongly believe in movies. If you can figure out a twist before it is explicitly stated, does not make it a bad twist. That just means it's set up well.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, I'm just saying, like for me, again, it does benefit from giving it breathing room and then
Yeah.
revisiting it
It sounds
when
like a lot of your
that happens.
investment though is in the twist. That's what I'm kind of getting. Like your investment in the movie is reliant upon the twist. Does that sound right?
I don't think so.
That's kind of what you've been explaining though.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call it that. I just like spacing it out so I have breathing room and I get to enjoy the characters more freshly
Okay.
every time. Hmm.
That's fair.
And I think it also helps that when I do rewatch it, like within a smaller space of time, the thing I latch towards to is Hugh Jackman's character arc because that's also really cool, and I think that twist is even more crazy
Of
than the
course.
other big twist. Actually, yeah, you know what? Yeah, no, Hugh Jackman's character is probably the more interesting one to me, at least, because uh, the way his morality crumbles near the end of the movie is so crazy to me, and the way Michael Caine delivers the line, "I was lying. He said it was agony." That every time that gives me chills,
Yeah.
and it's a great way to kind of sum up Hugh Jackman's storyline in that movie. So I will say, yeah, shout out Hugh Jackman and his character in that movie. They're like the anchor. He's like the
Of
anchor of
course.
that movie.
The Odyssey, people have been talking about how that is a big indicator of why Nolan should do horror. I personally think this is his best horror movie, directly tied to Hugh Jackman's kind of journey in this, especially leading towards the end. That terrifies me, and like the ideas that it's wrestling with like what makes people human is kind of a theme that you can throw into this. He kind of tacks it on near the end, and that is like a deep idea that you're exploring, and something that when I was introduced to that, it could just spark unlimited conversations and thoughts and ideas that are just really, really unique and interesting and quite horrifying and chilling. If Nolan were to do a horror movie and it was more along this lines of psychological horror, man, I would enjoy it a lot more than if it was like the Odyssey ones that we got. We'll get to the Odyssey later.
Um,
Yeah. And so yeah, you can say I'm relying on the twist. Maybe I am or whatever, but that's why it's F5 and it's an excellent movie. It
No, no,
is.
I'm
it is an
I'm
excellent
I'm
movie.
dogging on you a
Yeah.
little bit.
And speaking of excellent movies, The Dark
Hmm.
Knight. Do you want to
Oh
introduce it,
boy.
Elliot?
Yes, The Dark Knight. I'm trying to think. It may have been the first Nolan movie I ever saw. I do remember that I wasn't old enough or allowed to go see this in the theaters at the time. I can't remember how old I would have been. but there was obviously like a lot going on, especially with there being a shooting at one of the screenings, like kind of
So that
the
was with The Dark Knight
was
Rises
it the Dark Knight
where the shooting
Rises?
happened.
Yeah.
There were
Yes.
some with
Uh-huh.
the Dark Knight though too, right? Like the theater shooting was Dark Knight Rises, but there was some violence that I thought was spawned on kind of by the Joker. Am I wrong with that?
I'd need to look into it more, but I know that the theater shooting was Dark Knight Rises. Yeah.
Yeah, the theater one, but I do feel like there were violent acts as well because of like it sparked a lot of controversy or whatnot through the Joker character, which is the reason that I think this show is so or this movie I think is so fascinating, and it 100% comes down to Heath Ledger's performance. Like I said with Batman Begins, I think just about every other category that movie kind of tops The Dark Knight, but you really can't beat the Joker. Um, I also think the vehicles specifically in this movie are really stinking awesome. A lot of the stunts that they do with the tumbler. This is when we get like a full-on tumbler action sequence as well as his bike. Like that kind of reveal is pretty unforgettable. And then even just with the semi truck getting blown to pieces, you gotta love just every piece of it. Where the movie starts to be a little like the more gripes that I have with it kind of come from more of the Bruce Wayne. Where I found Bruce Wayne to be more interesting and exciting in Batman Begins. I definitely find myself getting a lot more bored and a little confused with some of the decisions that he makes in The Dark Knight, especially with Maggie Gyllenhaal. I think she's one of the more difficult parts of this movie for me, and the amount of like sway that she has on Batman. I think Harvey Dent is really good. Love his performance. Love Two Face. Looks so freaky and awesome. Definitely a big fan of that aspect, and definitely, definitely a solid movie, worth the hype that it gets most of the time. However, I would feel like this is one of the more overhyped movies just of all time, considering how many people just think it's the greatest thing ever made when there are definitely flaws with it, but it really does come down to the performance of a generation with Heath Ledger.
Yeah, I would. This is also kind of where the cracks start to form me in The
Yeah,
Dark Knight, because I think Batman Begins treats Batman like Batman,
yeah,
and it feels amazing. It feels like a comic book come to life. Honestly, The Dark Knight strips back Batman back a little bit. He feels a little more grounded, and I feel like getting rid of kind of like that supernatural element of Batman kind of hurts the tone a little bit of The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. And the after Batman Begins, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises are no longer just about Bruce Wayne and Batman. They become about a Bruce Wayne who does not want to be Batman anymore for some reason. Because even in this movie, he's talking about how he doesn't want to do it anymore and how he thinks Gotham doesn't need Batman anymore. And he's only been Batman for like what, a year and a half at this point, which is crazy.
Can
And
I interject in that, Regan?
yeah,
I've thought about this before, and I wonder if it's directly tied to Christopher Nolan not wanting to direct a superhero movie anymore. Like him feeling like, I don't want to make Batman movies anymore. And especially with The Dark Knight Rises, he's like, all right, fine. I guess I'll make another superhero movie. And that kind of ties in directly to Christian Bale and his portrayal of Bruce Wayne in the movie. It's interesting.
yeah. But I will say, I think it resolves in the end because the way this movie ends with Batman resolving to take the fall and being the hero and continue to be Batman, at least, well, the implication that he will continue to be Batman at the end of the movie, I think it rounds it off really nicely. And I think as a complete package, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are a great duology. Like, if you just watch those two movies as
yeah.
a
It's over after that.
complete package,
It's a shame they
it's
never
it's a
made a third.
great it's a great way to end it. Like you just feel like he's gonna be Batman, Gotham's gonna be safe, and whatever happens next, he'll be there to protect them. And I do think it was a nice way to end the movie. It's a great ending. It's great presentation. And yeah, this movie kind of hinges all on the Joker, though.
It
He's
does.
he's kind of the main character of the movie, which is really weird to say, but it really does feel like the movie centers all around the scenes with the Joker in it. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but how long this movie is, he only has like maybe 45.
I was gonna
No,
say
maybe
the stat is close to
probably like
45 minutes for his screen
yeah,
time, opposed to Scarecrow's like 7.
yeah,
So
and
big upgrade.
yeah, and it really feels like the movie just centers in around that 45 minutes of screen time for its character,
You
which is
could.
not a bad thing.
I was gonna say I think you could watch all 45 minutes and it would be a coherent enough story.
Yeah.
Um, just cutting everything aside.
hmm And again, shout out Scarecrow at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
It's a very fun scene, and he gets to Killian Murphy's kind of hamming it up a little bit, which is really funny. So shout out him in that scene, and then also shout out the final battle in the construction area because that was the Trump Tower being constructed in Chicago. So
No way.
shout out Trump Tower because they filmed the final battle in it.
The Dark Knight Rises, that final battles while they're constructing the Trump phone. Took them 20 years. They're still working on moist criticals.
So Dark Knight, I agree with what Elliot was saying when he said that this is a bit of an overhyped movie for me. I still love it. I still think it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite Nolan movies, but I don't think it's the best movie ever made. I think it's it starts to get a little messy towards the end. I think post the hospital blowing up scene, I think it gets a little messy, but I still really like the movie all the way up until the end. And I agree that the final sequence is fantastic. But I love The Dark Knight. A few things I'd like to point out is this is really where the set piece became an essential part of a Nolan movie. Like there had been cool scenes in previous Nolan movies, but it seemed like from this point on, there were those specific scenes that Nolan would put in the movie. And it's like, this is how we're selling the film. Like with The Dark Knight Rises, it's the airplane scene, and The Odyssey has several of them. And even like Tenet has a couple set pieces that they were teasing for the release of the movie. This was really like the beginning of Nolan as the set piece guy. This is where he got its start, especially with the chase scene through Gotham where the truck flips. Like that set piece is phenomenal.
Even the
I agree.
pile of
Heath Ledger's
money.
incredible.
Kind of a
Yeah,
set piece. That's all money there. It's fake money, but
yeah.
And he
So
absolutely beans that guy in the face
yeah, he
when he
does.
throws that.
They
It's so
burn it
funny.
all.
there's so much to love about this movie. I'll also say it's Nolan's clearest homage to Michael Mann, one of his biggest influences. Even just that it is filmed in Chicago. So many of Michael Mann's movies take place in Chicago, like Thief or even Manhunter or Heat. And Heat is the one that this most heavily takes inspiration from. I see so much of Heat in this movie. And I don't think it's as good as Heat. I think Heat is a superior film, but the fact that he was able to take aspirations and inspiration from such a beautiful masterpiece of a film and put it in a superhero movie and make it work for a superhero movie, I think is incredible. So I love this film. It is number 3 on my list. Number 3.
It's my number 3 as well, but like I said, it could be 4 depending on how I'm feeling about Batman
Yeah.
Begins.
It's my number 4.
All
Okay.
right.
Oh, is it my turn?
It's your turn.
It's my turn. Okay. Well, this next movie was my first Nolan movie ever, and I watched it when I'm gonna say like 12, and it blew my mind. Inception is very near and dear to my heart. Right off the bat, I will say it's my number one. This has been my number one Nolan movie for a while, for a long time, ever since I first watched it. I basically grew up with this movie after seeing it, and it has just become better with time, I think. And the way he structures this movie and presents the world has always fascinated me. Because Inception, action, kind of action sci-fi heist movie, it's so cool how they use the dreams and the locations to represent the levels of the dreamscape and how they build it up together. The way I've always described it is that there is a dealer with playing cards and they give out the cards to each player and each player gets to decide what that card is, but nobody else can know what card they're holding. And that's how I've always described it to people, is how the dream levels work. It's just everyone here understands the assignment, I think, for the most part. Nolan, the set pieces here are amazing. There's actually good fight scenes in this movie, which is not a common thing that you will see in most other Nolan movies, except for uh, except for like Batman Begins and maybe a couple other movies a little down the
Some
line.
moments.
But yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, he works in this role. I will say it is definitely not his best performance. Um, he's very serviceable in this movie, and I think his character works. It's the same thing with a lot of Nolan movies. His character is very simple, but it's a very simple execution that works
I'd
for the
push back on
story.
that a little bit. I think it's a little more complex than most Nolan characters, even for him. Even for him, I'd say, especially with how he interacts with Elliot Page in this movie, adds a few extra layers.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, I can get down with that. But I do like his wife.
Yeah.
Played by Marion Cotillard. She is also, I think I could count them on one hand. She's also one of the only interesting female characters in a Nolan movie. And she works very well for his character arc and his pain that he's hiding inside. Shout out Joseph Gordon-Levitt in this movie. He's very entertaining in his little gay romance with Tom Hardy. Always brings a smile to my face. Cillian Murphy in this movie is also very, very good. He's kind of the emotional core of this movie, and it's crazy how Nolan uses his character to emotionally manipulate us in the same way they're trying to manipulate his character's thoughts and incept the idea in his mind that he needs to just deconstruct his father's empire and make something new, right? And it worked on us. It worked. He does this all the time with his movies where he'll set something up and then just trick us into thinking the same exact thing as the characters are. It works in The Prestige. It works in this movie. It works in future movies. It's a wonderful setup with perfect execution. Inception is a masterpiece. I will love it to death. This is the only movie that I will go full Nolan bro on. Uh, it's a great movie. It's my number one.
Okay. Okay, so Inception. I like it a lot. I do think it is a very solid movie. My big issue with it comes in the exposition in the first half of the film. One of my least favorite attributes is Nolan as a writer is how clunky his exposition comes across in a good chunk of his movies.
Who did this script? Was this
Specifically,
Jonathan as well? Or is this him?
I'm not sure.
This might have been just him, but I'm gonna double
I
check
think
right
it
now.
was just him, but the exposition I think is particularly rough in his films, in this one and in Tenet and Interstellar. But I rewatched Inception just a few months ago and had a great time with it. Like it is a very fun movie, but uh, up until about the point when they enter into Cillian Murphy's dreamscape, I think the exposition can be a little tough for me to get through. And I understand that Nolan very much is setting up this world. He's establishing all these rules. He's taken so much time to think through how all of this works. and he wants to explain it all to us, but I feel like it gets a little heavy-handed at points and is a little tough for me to sit through, especially since when I think of dreams, it's more abstract, it's more surreal. It doesn't really make sense. I think the movie that this often gets compared to is Satoshi Kon's Paprika, which is a movie that I love. And in that film, the dreams do feel less like they're bound by logic like they are here in Nolan in Inception. And so that's how I tend to prefer dreams being portrayed on the big screen, is more abstract and more fluid instead of more of those rigid set of rules like in Inception. But it's undeniable when the everything starts going down that it is spectacular filmmaking. The special effects hold up brilliantly. I do like the ensemble cast. I agree with you guys in saying that I think Leo gives an all right performance in this movie. I don't think it's his best. I don't know if Nolan and DiCaprio are maybe the best fit. I think DiCaprio works much better with somebody like Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese, where he's able to give more fun and bouncy dialogue. But I still really like this movie. It's not quite at the top of my list like I know it is for a lot of people. So I actually have it. I have it at number 7 on my list. So I still like it. I still think it's solid. It's just the exposition does hold it back for me.
I'm going to interject here really quick because
Okay.
I'm going to defend the exposition because
All
beginning of the movie, it shows you exactly what the dream setup is. And the dream within the dream is it shows you that they're probably going to do this later again in the movie. And I think Elliot Page's character works very well as a vessel to kind of settle in and learn more about like how the dream setup works and the different elements and who needs to be there and what the purpose of each member of the team is and all of that. So I think for me at least, the exposition works really well and the way they build up the world and the concept too. But that's just me.
Okay. I can respect it.
I agree with both. Like, pretty. I'm kind of in the middle between both of you on this one. I'd also like to point out the score, like Hans Zimmer
Yeah.
on this one. This might be outside of Interstellar my favorite score. Like Dark Knight's up there, but this one is just like a really kind of sci-fi. It's in a way that you mentioned, like the interesting portrayal of dreams in movies. This is never how I would kind of imagine dreams being portrayed in movies, but it's a sci-fi idea that I think is really fun to bounce around with and is really unique, and I appreciate it for what it is. I can't really imagine it being shot or any other way. That being said, I am more impressed by some of like the earlier levels of the dream than I am on like Snow Place, where I feel like I would have kind of liked. I like the moving bridges and like the invisible walls and the train and all of these things, and then you kind of go to Snow Place, and it's cool. I was just like, that's it. It's a little kind of subjective, kind of deflation that I have there. And then I'd also agree with David. The exposition can be on the nose, but also like there's not a lot of subtlety with Nolan. When he has a theme, he's gonna have a character say it at least once. Especially near the end of the movie, I feel like they're just kind of saying what the theme is in a way that I think Jonathan is a lot more. Did we figure out who did the script? Was this Nolan?
It was just Chris.
I suspected as much because he has a harder time being subtle with a lot of, especially like the thematic beats. Although I will say this is, as far as a script that's coming from Nolan, I think these are some of his stronger characters, and I really did find myself getting invested in a lot of the emotional beats in this movie compared to a lot of his other ones. So really solid for me. This is probably like the last of my solid ones. Like this is my number 2 spot. So with Prestige, this one, Batman Begins, those are probably like the ones I would consider great. Everything below this goes from good to not so good, but this one slots in real nice near the top for me. Number
Okay,
2.
yeah.
Excellent.
I also want to shout out. This has one of the funniest cuts in a movie ever, unintentionally, unfortunately, where his wife jumps off the balcony and he shouts.
Yeah.
That edit is really funny. I'm sorry.
It is really funny. Okay, but we're going into this next film, and I have a sneaking suspicion we all have it put in the same spot on our list. This is the conclusion to the Dark Knight trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises. Say what you will about Christopher Nolan, you can never say that he's half-assing it. He is always going all in all of his movies. You feel it.
Well,
You're
what
like, yeah,
aspect of the
he
movie
really
are we
believes
saying? We talking about
he really
cinematography or
believes in his film.
script?
Hold on for a sec. He really believes in this movie. I think the exception is The Dark Knight Rises. I think he really didn't want to make this movie. I think he was kind of contractually obligated to make this, and he was already more interested in other projects moving forward. Like he wanted to make Dunkirk, he wanted to make Interstellar, much more than he wanted to make this film, and it feels that way. This movie feels very tired. We mentioned this earlier that Bruce Wayne doesn't really want to be Batman in this movie, and it takes him like an hour and 20 minutes before he actually shows up in the film, which is insane for a Batman movie to have so little Batman. Honestly, is just feels kind of disgraceful. Bane, I'm a little bit more warm on Bane than some people. I think he's kind of fun. He's kind of a campy villain. But I just don't think that all of these parts work together. I think Anne Hathaway is just kind of fine as Catwoman. I don't like Joseph Gordon-Levitt much at all as Robin in this movie. Um, Cobb's wife in Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio's wife in Inception, plays a villain in this movie too, and has the funniest death scene I've ever seen on the screen. It is so funny. You guys know the one. Every
We
time
know the
I see
one.
that clip, it makes me chuckle a lot. I see this film as having some really great moments. I think a lot of the cinematography involving like the snow at the end of the movie and the ice looks really nice.
Ice looks nice.
But ice looks nice. Ice looks really nice. You know what killed the dinosaurs, Elliot?
The Ice Age. Ah!
The Ice Age.
He was just
So
paying homage to Arnie. That's what
he
Nolan
was
was
just paying
doing.
homage to Arnie with the ice in this film. So my biggest issue with this movie is that Batman is hardly in it, and it's messy, and there's too much going on. It's way too long. It feels half-hearted in its attempt to conclude the trilogy. This is my last place one.
To my understanding, Nolan may have wanted to do this one at one point, but by the sounds of it, Heath Ledger had a much bigger role, and just like the amount of
Yeah.
outside things that happened, I 100% agree. I don't think he wanted to do much, which is kind of insane because this movie's significantly longer than the other ones. He didn't have,
Yeah.
if he didn't want to do it, you didn't have to make me sit through 2 hours and 40 minutes of you not wanting to make a movie. But I'd actually never seen it all the way through until like last week. And let me tell you, that first hour is rough to get through. I do not like Anne Hathaway's character at all in this. There's not a single moment where I felt anything for that character, including like when she's talking about her family, which I just thought was like the cheapest kind of escape hatch there. And it's like, I don't know what you're doing right now. Like, you have the most convoluted way of supporting your family. Like, you're kind of an idiot and I hate you for it. Bane, I also kind of agree with David on Bane. I think Bane has a very fun performance. Despite Nolan's affinity to make audio just non-comprehensible in his movies, I like not only the design of Bane. I thought he looked really cool. I thought he talked really cool. I thought his plan was utter nonsense. I hate just about any moment where I feel like I can see Nolan on his keyboard typing the screenplay like, oh, that'll be clever. It makes me a little frustrated because there's nothing clever about this movie, in any form. It's riddled with holes and complete lack of character and empathy for just about anyone. This is the worst version of Batman, I think, in any Batman movie. Even the campy ones with Bat Nipples and George Clooney and Michael Keaton, I'd rather see their Batmans than this one. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. There's a lot of things I could say about this movie, but for the sake of time, I know we all probably feel the same way. This is also at the bottom of my list.
Well, I'm right with you guys. It's right at the bottom. This movie offends me a lot. The beginning scene, the very opening of the scene, the plane sequence is cool in a nutshell, but the
It's
writing and
fine.
all the performances are so weird and hilarious. This is really the movie where the audio, the sound design cracks start to show. I don't know what happened to Nolan after this movie. I think, there's only one movie after
Adobe
this
Audition
one.
touched him or something. I don't know.
There's only one movie after The Dark Knight Rises where I think the sound design actually really works. But then all the other ones have like this same issue on different degrees of bad, I guess. And Alfred in this movie is incredibly frustrating. He is
Oof.
very, very bad. Very bad character, which is a drastic contrast to where he was in the other two movies. The fact that Batman quits right after he goes home at the end of the last movie is terrible.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
just not to interrupt, but you just probably reminded me of my biggest gripe with this movie, which is I feel like it totally undoes the ending of Dark Knight, like making me feel that the whole city hates Batman. I was like, "What?" I didn't get that impression at all at the end of Dark Knight. Like that just came out of nowhere, and I thought it was a horrible decision to make for a Batman movie. Absolutely awful place to get started on.
for me, at least, this is where I get on my high horse because you know I'm not even a full fledged writer or whatever, but I know I'm studying it. I'm trying to write more, and I usually don't want to say I could write a better movie, but this is one of the rare exceptions where I feel like even I could have written a better movie than what happened, and I'm gonna
You could have
really
written a better Odyssey too, but that's okay.
I'm gonna really quickly pitch my idea for Dark Knight Rises because there's a plot line in the last movie that I think they could have followed up on and made a very more interesting movie. Because you'll remember in the Dark Knight, there's a guy who figures out what Batman's secret identity is, the random lawyer, and we never follow up on what happens to him. And then there's that technology that Batman uses near the end of the movie, the sonar that uses people's cell phones. My pitch is
Man
Dark
Bat.
Knight Rises.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
really?
Dark No. Dark Knight Rises, you bring back this lawyer dude who stole the technology from Wayne Enterprises and he becomes Firefly. And he terrorizes the city and he's threatening to reveal who Batman is. And you just go on from there. That's that's my basic quick pitch for it, and I think that would have been way better than what we got. Because yeah, this movie is awful. This is the one Nolan movie that I straight up dislike strongly. So
Man, you could
last
have brought
place,
in Mad Hatter and it would have been more exciting.
yeah,
I
Harley Quinn even.
I don't trust Nolan with women. That might not have been a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can move on.
Interstellar. All right, this is where I deviate from a lot of people. We'll have a lot of discussion on this. This movie's a train wreck and a half as far as the script goes. I think it's pretty rough out the get go, with kind of the world building. Although I think aesthetically, the movie does a really good job in tricking me into thinking that the world building is solid, because this is my favorite soundtrack. This is like one of probably the prettiest movies I've just ever seen, in terms of the space sequences, the cornfield, the dusty home. I just absolutely love the feeling of the first third, and all of that kind of ends on the water planet. When a lot of just I start to feel like the technological and scientific leaps that they make. Like, I'm not a scientist, but even I can tell that this makes absolute, this is nonsense, the majority of it, and it all capitulates at the very end in the fifth dimension, which apparently is love, where no one can explain what is happening, only to end with him after having forgotten his, like, to make his primary motivation his daughter. I think is a great idea and concept, but I have a hard time relating to this guy when he's just completely forgotten about his son as well. Like, that's not even a joke. Like, people joke about that. That is a fundamental, like, gaping character flaw, I think. Like, dude doesn't give a thought to Timothy Chalamet pretty much the entire movie, which is really frustrating. I think Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway's characters are kind of write-ins for theme, but they are very shallow characters. The climactic fight between him and Matt Damon, I thought, was really cringe. And then it just, yeah, finish it all off with him finally seeing his daughter again, and I think it is a really kind of poorly written interaction, and then he just kind of pisses off. So I could watch the first. There's problems in the first third. I could watch that first third again and again. It still, like, with all the problems that I have with it, that first little bit I think creates a sense of wonder and like a bit of apocalyptic dread. I love apocalyptic movies and the isolating feeling and the desperation of humanity trying to cling on. But it's really hard to do that when I could not care less about any of the characters. And then I just, like, for a grounded, I this you people call Nolan grounded. This movie's anything but grounded. It makes zero sense what they're doing half the time. So, not a big fan of Interstellar. Although it isn't the bottom of my list. I think it comes pretty close. This is my number 10. This is right under Following, actually. So, that's still pretty high. Like, I like Following, but I feel like there's a cavern between Following and Interstellar. And that's probably my most controversial take when it comes to Nolan. I think probably every other person will disagree with that. I just have a really hard time with the majority of this exceedingly long movie. Nolan has, after Dark Knight Rises, has decided he's got to hit that 2.5 hour runtime at least. But the effects are cool. I yield the mic.
Well, I do agree with you in the fact that I think this movie definitely drops the ball in the third act when he goes into the black hole. The whole like Tesseract sequence, that's where I kind of have to throw my logic out the window and just be like, okay, this is happening now, I guess. And yeah, the explanations are kind of laughably bad.
Is there another
Like,
moment in a Nolan movie that bad? Like, even in Dark Knight, even sending every single cop in the city of New York into the sewer system, is there anything in another Nolan movie that makes less sense than that third act, do you think? Including Tenet.
The police thing is a dumber moment, personally. I can kind
You
of
have broken reality
this.
with Interstellar.
Yeah, what he's trying to do a 2001: A Space Odyssey thing, right? Where he's trying to, like, look into the beyond and there's some inexplainable force that's helping him along on his journey, which I
Yeah,
don't.
but where it fails is that he tries to explain it
He
at the very
does.
end, like the robot says, "Oh, these bulk beings made the Tesseract." I'm like, what bulk? What are these bulk beings you're talking about? And then Matthew McConaughey at the very end is
It's
like,
just the
"It's us
engineers
from
from Prometheus.
another."
It's us from the
From
future.
the it's us from
We're
another
the
time in
ones
another
helping
Do you
dimension.
know
ourselves
what has
I'm
that
out.
like,
same twist and does it better? Literally Moonfall. Roland Emmerich's Moonfall has a better payoff than Interstellar. And I love Moonfall. Shout out Moonfall. Garbage movie. 10 out of 10 experience.
yeah. I'm gonna use the bathroom really quick, but David, you take the wheel for a second.
Yeah, so with Interstellar, this is maybe the single most overhyped movie of all time. You ask any guy my age or any guy, white guy who's going to college what his favorite movie is, and I'd say there's about a 50% chance that they're going to say Interstellar. White guys love this movie, dude.
Shout out
White
white
men
guys.
love Interstellar. Shout out the white guys out there.
White guys, we
And I
love
get it.
you.
Like you were saying, Elliot, this is a beautiful movie to look at. Where this falls apart, though, is just in the script. I think from a screenwriting perspective, this has my least favorite Nolan monologue ever, which is Anne Hathaway's monologue about like the power of love. Drives me up a wall, man. Like, stop hitting me with this hippy dippy BS, bro. Like, I do not. It just comes out of nowhere too. I really feel like where this movie excels is on a technical achievement. It's in the score. It's the special effects department.
Mm-hmm.
It's the look of the movie. All that stuff is excellent. I'll even say I like Matthew McConaughey in the movie. I think he does a great performance. The scene that
In
most
one
people will
scene.
bring up is where, yeah, but I like him in the rest of the movie as well. I do. I think he's fun. I think this movie is a mess, and I agree. It seems like we all have different fall off points for where the movie loses us. For Regan, it's where he enters the black hole. For you, Elliot, it's where they land on the planet. For me, it's when Matt Damon shows up. Like, that is where the movie just kind of loses me. Like, I'm on board for most of it going up to that point. And I love Matt Damon. I think he also gives a good performance. He just doesn't have any good material to work off of. I think his character is named Man, and he's so obviously a shoe-in for like mankind. I don't know. It's just so unsubtle. It drives me up a wall. And I
No one
think most
apparently
of his
doesn't
character
like mankind very
motivations,
much.
yeah, most of his motivations I don't think make very much sense. So it's a movie of very high highs and some pretty low lows for me. But overall, I used to dislike it quite a bit more. I rewatched it in preparation for this to give it another fair shot. And I did like it more. I think the first half of the movie still is very, very good. I think it's still very solid. It's the second half of the movie where it does fall off for me. So this is number 8 on my list.
Yeah, I also rewatched it, and that's kind of the reason why it's higher on my list right now. And it is another movie I think Batman Begins would eclipse when I rewatch Batman Begins.
Based.
Um, for me, it's really just all the technical aspect stuff that I
Agreed.
really appreciate in this movie. It's a great presentation, and shout out for Nolan making a third interesting female character, Murphy, in this movie is interesting and a pretty good character for what she is and how she serves the story, because it's a heck of a lot better than some characters that came before her and
Yeah.
some characters that will come after her. And it's that emotional draw of the movie that I think it does work. And Jonathan Nolan did help write the script. And
He also did
I
Fallout
can,
Season 1, so he's not perfect.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think there are elements where I can tell it was Jonathan, and then there are the elements it's very obviously Chris coming in and being like, let's do this. And
Dang it, Chris. You said you wouldn't write anymore.
I think one of the things that really struck me and leaves me really dissatisfied about the movie is that in tandem with Matthew McConaughey messing with the bookshelf in the Alien Tesseract or whatever. In tandem, where we get the plot line of Murph trying to reconnect with her brother and trying to convince him that there's actually something going on, but we never get a proper emotional resolution to them, reconciling and Casey Affleck coming to terms of like, you know what, our father does care or whatever. Like, I don't like the fact that we never get to see what happens to Tom and what he decides to do at the end, and it,
For a
it doesn't
movie
sit
about
right with.
love and family, it's not something you want to be leaving out.
Yeah, yeah. So and again, purely mostly because of the technical aspects, this movie right now is sitting at number 6 on my list. I got to rewatch Batman Begins. That
As far as space imagery goes, I can't think of pretty much anything else that beats this out, having been made afterwards. Like even Project Hail Mary, which I thought was beautiful and really impressive on so many levels. Fantastic Four actually had a really neat space sequence in a movie that I didn't super care for, but it was okay. And a lot of praise came from that space sequence, but all of them are still kind of in the shadow of the imagery from Interstellar, which just looks so good. Especially in the spacecraft through and through. And so I think that will stand the test of time forever and ever. But man, if there could have been a good story, this could have been so special.
Yeah. I will say also, Spielberg was actually once in line to direct this movie,
Hmm,
and he decided that Nolan would be a better fit for it. And I think he did that because of the technical demands that the
that's
story
fair.
was asking for.
Mhm.
So and Spielberg has a good judgment. Like, it's cool that he handed it off to Nolan, but I can't help but wonder, and I think
We'd have
the
gotten aliens
from the
and
the
trains.
There would
family,
be
I think the family aspect, like the relationships between Coop and his children, would have been a lot better fleshed out under Spielberg's eye than it
Yeah,
was in this movie. And what could have been. But yeah, it's a decent movie in my eyes.
Next up, you want to introduce this one, Regan?
Okay, Dunkirk is a
Dunk
movie that I
a Chino.
this is a movie that I have flip flopped on quite a bit, because back when I first watched it, I didn't like it that much, and for the longest time, I kind of kept that opinion. I rewatched it again a few years ago, and it's just like, yeah, it just doesn't work for me. Like, where are the characters? What's the point of this movie? Why am I watching this? And I rewatched it last week, and it finally clicked with me. You kind of have to not necessarily turn your brain off, but you have to really abandon the notion that characters matter, because they don't really matter in this movie.
What?
Yeah, no, the characters don't matter in this movie. What really matters in this movie is the spectacle, the set pieces, the production design, the presentation of this movie. What this movie is a sequence of peril and panic that is presented extremely well. And I think all that works so well in this movie. I think of the sequence, it got my heart pounding, where the boat gets hit by the torpedo and then the ship begins to flood. That sequence is incredible. And this movie is just full of those sequences. And it doesn't really matter who you're following in this movie. You just want these soldiers to be saved and to be safe. And they just focus in on, like, Harry Styles and the other guy, just as a way to like move the audience from scene to scene. And it just, and all of these uh, plot lines and the way that it's told just works so well, I think, in the end. It makes for a good payoff. Dunkirk is a very, very well polished movie, and it is the only movie post Dark Knight Rises, I think, that has good sound design, because
Agreed.
it's a war movie. So
Yeah.
it's a good movie.
Yeah, I agree with you, Regan. I think this is where his non-linear storytelling, like playing with time, feels a little wonky for me. I'm not sure how I feel about how he structured each section as like, okay, this takes place over the course of an hour, this takes place the course over 3 hours, and this is over the course of a day. It makes the movie feel a little strange to me, but apart from that, I think this is an excellent movie. I love there are few other war films that have as much of a gritty feel and look to them, where it actually feels like you're on the beach with these soldiers experiencing these things firsthand, these horrors firsthand. It's one of Nolan's best looking movies. I think maybe right behind Interstellar. This is a gorgeous looking film. The shot of the missiles exploding and the sand falling on his face is really an all time great war movie shot. It's fantastic. So I like that Inception or Interstellar was such a plot heavy movie, and that's where I get my like disdain for some of that movie's elements. This movie like just abandons all of that. It's just pure visceral wartime imagery and sequences, and I really admire that element about it.
I have to agree on the non-linear. That was the big thing that was bothering me at first. But I did really find myself starting to enjoy this a lot more than I thought. And I feel like the non-linear, although I think it could have been structured a little bit differently, did help me understand like the scope of all the different things that were happening at one time in this event. I feel like this is possibly one of the movies we talk about how there's almost no passion in Dark Knight Rises. This might be the most passionate I've felt Nolan has felt about not just a movie but an event. I feel like he really related. I don't know if he had like ancestors that were part of this conflict or if it was just a story that was really profound to him. But I really felt like this was something he cared a lot about and he'd done a lot of research on. I kind of disagree that the characters weren't fully fleshed out here. I think in an event like this, especially when it's historical, you're trying to capture the characters in that moment, but you're rarely going to get a character arc. Despite that, I still feel like there were some moments where like Tom Hardy's pilot, where I felt like he showed a little bit of character growth with his desire to stay out and to eventually like save the day, which I thought was pretty cool. You also get the contrast of a lot of the people who at first were kind of in hiding, but then would eventually step up and kind of take the call to adventure a little later in the story, where typically you'd get that at the beginning, but following Nolan's like non-linear, some of them would kind of step up near the end of the movie or in the middle of the movie, or whatnot, which I thought was more or less pretty interesting. Dunkirk is not an event I was familiar with. After having watched the movie, it's one I want to rewatch because it was a little confusing for me. I don't feel like I fully understood the full timeline or all the pieces that fell into Dunkirk. It's something I'd like to do some more research on. But I do feel like I can give Nolan a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here and know that all the pieces are there, especially since this is a historical, like based heavily on a historical event. I'd like to think that a lot of these characters were based on actual people. And obviously like the attention to even the sounds of the planes and how they looked and how like the captain could recognize what plane it was just by the sound of the engine, that all of these pieces were well thought out. So I was definitely impressed. This is one that I just heard nothing much about. The people that had seen it that I know of kind of thought it was a little meh. There's one person I know that thinks this is Nolan's best movie. And so I wanted to give it a look, and then I did enjoy it. I think this is my number 5.
My number 6.
This would be my number 8.
Okay, so a little bit lower.
Yeah, it definitely works, and you might say it works also because there's no female characters in it, so he's able to just lock in and focus on the sequences presented in this movie. It also starts out with a bang because I love that sequence where uh, the one guy and his platoon are just wandering through the street and then they
Yeah.
just get picked off one by one by the Germans. And I love that you never see the Germans physically. They're kind of just this ever looming threat. And then finally at the very end, you kind of just catch a glimpse of them when they surround Tom Hardy's pilot. So
It
I
remind
kind
me
of
of
like
Top
that
Gun
payoff.
villains a little bit.
Yeah.
Just like these faceless pilot
That's
people.
a good analogy.
Yeah.
Okay,
I,
but
and shout out to Barry Keegan's character because he caught the biggest
The
stray ever.
Joker?
yeah.
He just wanted to help out, and then he gets freaking clocked out and dies. So
Yeah, I think actually Cillian Murphy clocks in the best performance in Dunkirk. I think he's actually really great in it,
Tom Hardy, I've
even though he
realized, is
doesn't have
really good
much.
at acting behind masks.
Hmm.
Because I feel
yes,
like he emotes quite a bit despite never really seeing his face.
Exactly.
yeah,
That's why he's
yeah,
Mad Max.
yeah. Shout out to your letterbox review too, Elliot. Done, Charlie. So
Done, Charlie. Done.
That's
Yes.
pretty good. All right. We're moving on. We're officially past the 2010s. We're in the 2020s, modern Nolan.
Roni time.
And starting off with a movie that I completely acknowledge is just a big mess and really stupid. And most people probably don't like it, but I will defend because I think it's quite a bit of fun. And that is Tenet. I still have Tenet underneath Inception and Interstellar. I have it at number 9 on my list, but I quite like Tenet. Christopher Nolan has always wanted to make a James Bond movie, and
Well, this
I
sure as
think
hell is
this
not a
was
James
his.
Bond movie.
Yeah, I think this was his attempt to make a James Bond movie, like a spy espionage thriller, but he just had to throw in some BS time inversion thing on top of it to convolute things. Where this movie's strengths lie, I think, is just in trying to unravel his this science fiction mechanic. The more you think about the plot, I think it can be fun to figure out how everything unwound. I totally get people who say that this movie is far too complicated. This is a convoluted plot for sure, for sure. But if you're willing to put the time into thinking about the movie and you think about some of the things that happen, I think there is fun to be had here. I don't love the lead performance from Regan. Help me out. It's
John David Washington.
John David Washington. Thank you. He's fine in the movie. I think the real star here is Robert Pattinson. He's a blast in this
Yep.
movie. I really think maybe he just should have been the lead because he brings so much charisma and charm and swag to this role. I really like him in this movie a lot. And a lot of my enjoyment that I get out of this film just comes from him chewing up the scenery. I think him and Nolan are a really good pair. I'd love to see them collaborate more going into the future. Maybe even give him like a full like leading role instead of just a supporting role. But I like Kenneth Branagh as the villain. I think he's fun. He's kind of a stupid character too, but as like a mustache twirling, world
Hmm.
destroying Bond villain, I think he can be kind of fun. So this is a guilty pleasure for me. I have Nolan. Or I have Tenet at number 9. I think this is kind of a fun but really stupid and flawed movie. Oh, also the first Ludwig Göransson score collaboration with Nolan, and I actually really like the
And
score
Travis
that he did
Scott.
here with Tenet, and the first
Yes.
Travis Scott collaboration, and not the last.
Not the
Many
last.
more projects, hopefully going forward. I hope they make an album together one day.
Yeah, Nolan just loves Fiend, and he was like he listens to it in a loop when he's trying to go to sleep. But I'm oddly in a similar boat. I think I'm most intrigued by the premise of this one, and I'd go as far as saying this is my favorite mechanic in a Nolan movie, or at least the idea of a mechanic, because I don't think it's executed very well. I like the idea of like a forward progression in time but moving backwards. And I thought that was such a fascinating idea. And I feel like he's able to utilize it at some times. Meanwhile, like an inverted person fighting someone who's moving chronologically forward in time just doesn't really work despite it looking really cool. I don't think it makes a lick of sense. The more you watch the movie, you can start to figure out what the story is about, and then you realize that it's not good either. So maybe a lot of normies are just better off not really understanding it, because the more you understand, the more the cracks and the nonsense kind of show through. The sound design is just abhorrent as well. One that I remember specifically disliking was when they're like on a sailing boat. Seeing that in the theaters, I didn't know they were supposed to be talking during that. I thought they were just on a boat, and apparently there was an entire conversation that I'd missed. So, I've not seen it outside of the theaters. I think I saw it like 3 times in the theaters because nothing was coming out. It was during COVID, and like all the theaters were empty. So I saw that and the New Mutants. Shout out that abortion of a movie. But the Tenet I thought was fun, but overall kind of a disaster at the same time. The villain is in fact one of the deeper characters in this movie, and he is not a deep villain nor a good character. He's like one of two, I would say. That Robert Pattinson, I think, is barely a character either. Like his performance is carrying, but like his character is extremely flat and non-existent. And then it all,
I agree. It all does come back to just Robert Pattinson
yeah,
being so charming and fun to watch, but his character writing is just whatever.
and it's all even further like worsened by the protagonist, literally named the protagonist, which might be the most
That
pretentious,
is really
douchiest
stupid.
thing I've ever heard. So this movie's garbage, but I also kind of love it. It's my number 12 though, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, this movie gives me a massive headache.
Yeah,
I
fair.
I watched it and I was impressed by some sequences, but for the most large part, it is definitely something that Nolan just wanted to make for whatever reason and not really any other reason. I think he owes John David Washington a massive apology because I don't think he's very good in this movie. He,
There's
I
nothing
think
to
he's
do.
way in. He has nothing to do in the story. He's way in over his head, and I don't think he understands the script very well. And Nolan, as we know, is not very good at explaining things, and he probably had a terrible explanation to give to his actors about what's happening at any given time during this movie. And for the majority of the movie, the protagonist seems very lost, both in character and both in performance. Uh, it is it is so sad to see him like this. He's much better in The Creator, which is not even the best of movies either. But he's much better in that movie than in this one, and that it's just sad to see.
Regan's talking
Uh,
about him like a sick dog that just needs to be put down, just needs to be brought out back and
yeah,
shot.
no, I feel bad for him, bro. He
Uh,
deserves much better than this because he's he's a good actor and he deserves a role that challenges more from
He's a
him.
good actor.
There's a female character in this movie, and she is
Oh, girl.
laughably she's laughably bad. Unfortunately, it's like Nolan attempted to make her interesting, but in the moment, kind of just fridged her and made her a worse character because of it. Um, the one scene in this movie that I think works really well as an execution of his concept and the characters is the interrogation scene where we have the blue room on one end and the red room on the other. And the way he works the inversion into that scene and the time travel really it works really well. And I really like that scene. It's the only scene where I felt anything at all about how it was being executed and how the characters were used. And then other than that, like I ordered my hot sauce an hour ago. Like, what the heck are we doing here? It's
So funny.
it's a it's a it's a weird movie. It's my number 11. It is. It's not a movie I intend to rewatch anytime soon. So
I will say also, in the same vein of funny Nolan death scenes that we've already mentioned, the scene of Kenneth Braun like falling off the boat is really funny too. So shout out that scene. It's great.
This is one
Okay.
you gotta watch with a group of friends at some point too, which is it's just a good time.
This is my dad's favorite Nolan movie. My dad
That's fun.
loves this one. And so it is really fun talking about it with my dad, and
Does he
he
understand the
loves
plot?
talking. Yeah, he does. Yeah,
That's cool.
he's a smart guy, and he loves the mechanics in this movie, which I think is fun. So I love that my dad loves it.
That's good.
But my dad watches these videos too, so shout out, Dad. Um, but let's move on to the next movie. Uh, Again, Elliot, you want to cover this one?
The Sloppenheimer. Um,
Sloppenheimer.
the Schmoppenheimer. Um, this is a movie I actually did never get the chance to see in the theaters. So my only viewing of this movie occurred on televisions. And so I'm not gonna lie, I'd heard people ranting and raving about this, and especially in conjunction with Barbie, which was a movie I despised. I did not like the Barbie movie at all. My brother, on the other hand, loves the Barbie movie, so we've had lots of fun discussions about it. He just loves Ken. I thought Ken was a clown. All of the Kens were clowns. But enough about Barbie. Oppenheimer is yet another one where I feel like Nolan really, like, he loves history, and you can tell in some of these movies when he's pulling from a lot of historical events and figures that he's very passionate about. And I think this is another instance where that passion really shines through. Um this movie is so long, and I definitely caught myself getting bored, especially the first viewing, but I will always be impressed by the amount of investment that he created, or allowed me to have about just some dude who made the atomic bomb. And I felt that even without like the action, I thought the story was really good. It's another one where I feel like the out of order, like Nolan traditional style, is in there for the sake of Nolan liking that. I don't really think it's to the detriment of the movie. It didn't add a whole lot for me. I don't think you'd lose too much if you put it chronologically, in the sense that I think that the theme is pretty consistent, and with like a few minor tweaks it could have worked chronologically as well. Two gratuitous sex scenes I do not think were necessary. Nolan had never really done those before. I understand why he put them in and the message he was trying to give with them. I thought that was a bit of a misstep as far as this movie went. One of my bigger ones that I have with the movie, but overall, I was really impressed by the performances across the board. Emily Blunt was honestly one of my favorites in this one. She'd probably be my pick for favorite performance in this movie. So shout out Oppenheimer. I liked it more the second time that I saw it. I thought it was good.
uh, Oppenheimer is incredible. I went and watched this in the theater with my dad, who is a chemistry professor.
Mm.
So he had a little bit of a extra investment in it because of what Oppenheimer has offered to the field of quantum mechanics and that general area of science. So it was interesting sitting down and watching it with him. And I even in the theater, I remember me and him, we both wore glasses, and for the sex scenes, the three scenes with nudity in them, we just took our glasses off and just listened to the audio instead. And
The horrendous
there,
mixing instead.
yeah, and 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 even then, with this one in particular, I think the audio mixing for the most part is okay. There were like only a few scenes where I kind of noticed the problems seeping through, but it's interesting that this movie kind of triggered another discussion about you know, are sex scenes necessary and whatnot. It was this movie and Poor Things that really triggered that discussion again. And Poor Things has a more legitimate reason for having that much nudity in it, and in Oppenheimer, definitely not. There's only one scene in this movie where I think the nudity might be justified, and even then, it's very weak uh, for that. But regardless of that, back to the positives. Cillian Murphy gives, in my opinion, the best performance of his career, and also
I'd agree.
the best performance in a Nolan movie. This is my favorite performance of any Nolan movie ever. He is magnetic in this role. I just love watching the way he adopts Oppenheimer's mannerisms and his pattern of his speech pattern, and he looks like Oppenheimer in this movie, which is crazy. Just like the physical transformation and the way they use the makeup just very subtly to make him look a little bit more like Oppenheimer. It's really impressive. And he really is, I think, the main draw for me in this movie. Without him, with a different actor, I don't think this movie would work. I do think Cillian Murphy is kind of the main draw and the main reason why this movie works at
Not
all.
Albert
Uh,
Einstein.
no.
Oh, come on. Albert serves an important role in the movie.
This is an
Scientists pop
Avengers
up in
level cameo right there.
yeah, scientists pop up in this movie like they're MCU characters. The John F. Kennedy name drop in this movie is the corniest
John
thing
F.
I've ever heard.
Kennedy.
It's it's crazy how much they get away with, and it still works. Uh, I think my favorite scene in this movie actually it even is a kind of a Marvel level cameo. But Gary Oldman, when he shows up as President Truman, that whole scene I think is really good. Uh, it kind of shows Oppenheimer's whole conflict right there, and it's a wonderful movie. It's my number two. I really like this movie. I think it's very impressive. Ludwig Göransson's score. This is
It
my favorite
carries.
of his. This is
Incredible.
my favorite of his scores that he's given to Nolan. Uh, it's an amazing one that I continue to listen to. But yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah, this is my number one. I had
Hmm.
to debate between this one and another one. I went back and forth a lot, but I do think this is his best. I agree that it has its clunkiness. There's a certain clunkiness in every single Nolan movie, I think, that always just kind of, even his best work, maybe like pushes me away just slightly. Um, but I love this film. One of the best edited movies ever. I think the fact that this movie is edited like an action scene or like a montage throughout its whole runtime is a fascinating way to approach this very talk heavy film. And it makes it feel as grand, as important as the story actually is. Nolan has often said that he thinks Robert Oppenheimer is the most important person to live in the 20th century. And after watching this movie, I might tend to agree with him. He makes an excellent case for it. He brings a certain level of psychological like torment to this film that I wasn't expecting, but works really, really well. My favorite scene in the movie is where he's giving the speech to the people after the bomb has gone off and the war has been won. I think that scene is electrifying and actually a fantastic use of sound in his movies. I love how the rest of the audio cuts out and you can only hear the screams of people that have been affected by his work. I think it's very, very affecting. Yeah, I think more than just about any of his other films, all of the pieces come together very, very nicely. I think the performances across the board are really great. I love huge ensemble casts like this. I think it's a lot of fun. I maybe you guys think it's lame sometimes, but I really like movies where there's just like 80 famous people in them, and I'm like, whoa, hey, I know him. That's Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I know that guy. Or whoever else. That's Han Solo from Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Oh
I like
no.
movies where it's just like a huge stacked cast. So this is my favorite Nolan. I think it's an excellent film. I'm happy that he won Best Picture for it too. Like, if any of his movies was to win the Oscar, I'm glad it was this one. Fantastic.
This is my
Oh,
number
but
6. I
okay.
don't know if I put that rating out there. I
Number 6. Okay.
It's right behind Dunkirk. I could see it going higher though. Especially I think a big piece of it being my number 6 is like behind the Batman ones, my love for the character of Batman, but I love hearing people that are extra passionate about this one. I feel like I would have felt a lot different about it if I would have had the opportunity to see it when the hype was big and like in the theater and stuff. But I still definitely dig it for sure.
It was an awesome theater experience for
I
sure.
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah.
I saw it twice in the theater,
I did too.
which helped it a
Yeah.
lot. I did the Barbenheimer back to back too, so I watched Oppenheimer
You
first, of
dirty
course, because
dog.
I was more interested in Oppenheimer than Barbie, but they both
I
surprised
also
me in
watched
different
Oppenheimer
ways.
first.
You did
Yeah,
it out
but
of
I'm
order.
a Barbie defender through and through. I really like Barbie. I
Oh,
think it's a fun movie. Okay.
Well, yeah. Enough about Barbie and Oppenheimer, because time to finish this out. Time to go home,
uh-oh.
because time to return home, because we're at the Odyssey.
Oh dear.
Um, and I'm gonna briefly describe my Odyssey to this movie, because uh, back in it was February of 2024. I was at the Barnes and Noble in Idaho Falls, buying some physical media, like I usually do sometimes. And I get a notification on my phone, and I look down, and it said, Christopher Nolan's next movie is The Odyssey. And I kind of freaked out right then and there. And I was like, how on earth is he going to do this movie? And so since then, I've been hotly anticipating what he was going to do. And now I'm here in Ketchikan, Alaska, and Ketchikan has one theater and one screen in that theater,
Let's
and it
go.
fits 120 people. And I knew that there was very little chance that I would be able to see this movie on opening weekend. And I made plans to travel to Juneau, Alaska to watch this movie pretty soon as it came out. And so I purchased my ticket and I flew up to Juneau Sunday night to Wednesday morning of the week right after it came out. I spent it with David, hung out, and I saw the Odyssey in was it a full IMAX screen?
I don't think so, but
Yeah, I don't think it was
it's
like
hard
full
to.
IMAX, but it was a much bigger screen than
The
the one
glacier
Ketchikan
here?
has.
Yeah,
You asking if
Yeah,
that was IMAX? Not even
it wasn't.
close.
Yeah, but
It
it
is a
felt like it to
crap
me because
theater.
I it felt like it to me because the one in Ketchikan, the screen is so small. So watching it even on a bigger screen for
That's
me was
fair.
like a cakewalk. It was amazing.
A lot of IMAX is also like the technical specs, like the sound and whatnot, has to be up to certain.
Mhm.
Like, this wasn't even qualified as premium theater.
Yeah. And so the movie began, and I didn't really know what to expect. And as it began, I got a little nervous because I think the first 30 minutes or so of this movie are kind of rough, especially in the way that it's edited and presented. I was not really digging what they were putting down. And it took me a little bit to settle into its groove. But when it does, it really becomes a movie that I could not take my eyes off of. the sequence that really made me lock in was when it recreates the Siege of Troy. That sequence is an all-timer in my book for Nolan. I loved that sequence so much. And after that, like I started getting into the performances more. I think this is a everyone in the cast here, I think, is on top of their game. I think Matt Damon gives his best performance in a Nolan movie. I think he's improved in every Nolan movie he's in. He's good in Interstellar. He's better in Oppenheimer, and he's especially better in this movie. I think. I think, and I will die on this hill. I think Tom Holland is amazing in this movie. He is good in this movie. I will defend him till the day I die in this movie.
Wait,
Anne
who's saying
Hathaway's
he's
great.
bad? Who's saying he's bad?
A lot of people. I keep seeing a lot of people on the internet saying he's
Really?
bad, and I don't think he is at all. I think he's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing in this movie.
Well, I'd have
But
you know, I said it first, all right? Before any of them.
Anne Hathaway, great in this movie. Robert Pattinson, somebody get these beggars out of here.
That
Really good in
peaked.
this movie. Uh,
Yeah, mic audio peaked there.
I bet it did when he said that on set too.
Yeah, it probably
Uh,
did.
Probably.
uh, and
Drops the hard
John
banger.
Leguizamo. John Leguizamo,
Sid the
especially,
Sloth.
I think he gives the best performance in the movie. He was endlessly impressive, I think, for me, especially. And it's a movie I think will age better in my mind over time. I was still very impressed with everything that Nolan put down in this movie. I think Ludwig Göransson's score is pretty good. I think it fits the vibe that Nolan is going for, and it fits a lot of specific scenes really well. Like I love the Hades sequence where they go to the underworld. That is one of my favorite sequences in the movie, and the score for that particular scene works extremely well to set up the kind of eerie and unknown uh, setting of the underworld there. And especially with the Odyssey, I think we're back to the the cinematic magic tricks that Nolan is so well known for, like such as in The Prestige or in The Dark Knight. Uh, I'm thinking of specifically the payoff of Batman's wrist blades that shoot out and how it comes back into play in The Dark Knight. Like that kind of trick, I think it comes back so well in this movie. Uh, Not even just the action sequence at the end. I think one of my favorite scenes in this movie is where he gives the lot back to Antinous, and he sets it on his plate, and that you just see the face expression change on Robert Pattinson's face. I think that scene right there is like proof enough that Nolan still has it when it comes to cinematic payoffs, and it works really well. It's an impressive movie. I do have to watch it again because I feel like where my criticisms start is that it's very thematically similar to Oppenheimer, and I kind of don't like that it's
I agree.
very similar in that way to Oppenheimer. Like I wish it was a little bit more separate from that. And I feel like the last shot of showing the Trojan horse burning is a little bit too on the nose for me when it comes to things. And that's Nolan for you. You know that he's gonna do that.
Dirty
He's just
dog.
he's gonna do that. It's what we come to expect of him. But I just wish he kind of focused a little bit more on something else rather than just like the crumbling of civilization and oh we can never go back to this.
Our age of
But shout out,
bronze is at an
yeah,
end, he
yeah,
says.
yeah. And as with the online discourse on this movie, the translator of the specific version or whatever, she
Emily
came out
Wilson.
and made her own review,
Shout
and
out
that
Emily
review was
Wilson.
Emily Wilson. Yeah, her review was kind of hilarious. I think
Based.
it's very, very definitely subjective, and I definitely didn't agree with everything she was saying about it. And a lot of people are saying a lot of things about it, and I'm just trying to kind of form my own opinion on it. It and so in conclusion to my spiel, I think it is a movie that works very well. It is presented very well. It is performed very well, and I think all the actors understand the assignment that they are given to them. It's a movie that will, I think, hopefully age better with time. But we'll just have to see.
I agree that it could potentially age poorly. I can see elements of it being a little tough to digest moving forward. That being said, I am a big Odyssey fan, not just this movie, but of the original story. I've read it 3 times. I've read graphic novel versions of it. I read Percy Jackson and the Sea of Monsters, and that's basically the Odyssey. But um, I love the original epic poem. I've read Emily Wilson's version of it. I read it in preparation for this movie. So I can at least safely say that I am a fan of the Odyssey. I love this source material. I love the story. And I thought the Odyssey was excellent. I really, really enjoy this movie. Some of the big things that you mentioned, Regan, I agree with. I love how the set pieces play off of each other. I agree that the first 20 minutes is the worst part of the movie. I think the editing is rough in that section. But what really surprised me about The Odyssey as opposed to Christopher Nolan's other work is how it affected me emotionally. I don't usually get deeply emotionally moved by Nolan movies. The closest I came to is probably Oppenheimer, especially in that scene I was telling you about, the speech scene. That really got to me emotionally. But this movie has big emotional swings, and I think they pay off. I love the big epic feel of this film. Say what you will about how faithful it is to the original epic or the themes that it carried over from the original epics, but the story that Nolan was trying to tell about Zeus's law, about being chivalrous to our fellow men, I think it worked perfectly for the framework that he developed for this movie. I liked the acting across the board. My highlight is Matt Damon. I think Matt Damon is really excellent in this movie. He brings a level of heroicism, of inner turmoil and guilt like Cillian Murphy did. Maybe not to the same degree and perfection that Cillian Murphy did, but I think he brings it still. He brings that heroicism, that stoicism, that cleverness. He's great in this movie. And then, of course, Robert Pattinson, I think, just gives a very fun, sniveling bad guy performance. So I really liked him in this. I love how this movie just feels like one big set piece after another, after another, after another. It's epic, it's fun, it's bombastic. I love that it brings it to a modern audience. One of our coworkers here in Juneau had never even heard of the Odyssey before and went to the theater and just loved it. And she came up to me afterwards and was like, David, I loved that movie. And I was like, I know, it's great. And she's like, I love the Odyssey. And I was like, me too. I love that a new modern audience can experience this story. I think it's very, very cool. So, yeah, I see a lot of people's criticisms with the movie, including Emily Wilson's. But for me, the movie worked very well. I loved this one. So it's my number 2 on my list.
All right. Was the night before the Odyssey, and all through the town, every retard on Twitter was being a clown. And that was my interaction with the Odyssey at first. I didn't actually get a chance to see it until like 3 days after it had come out. And by that point, it felt like the whole world had already seen this movie. And I would agree that there was a sentiment that most people who saw it before, or most people had made their mind up about what they'd think of the movie before even seeing it. I've noticed a lot of like big Nolan fans would defend, like even now will not, like both of you acknowledge there are flaws in the movie. There's plenty of people out there who will refuse to acknowledge any form of flaws. Like this is utter perfection. On the other side, you have people that for the casting alone will not give this movie any credit whatsoever. And I think that's incredibly frustrating as well. Like there's just some kind of cruel and pretty judgmental people out there. But I unfortunately feel like this movie was hyped out of this world by the time I'd actually gotten in there to see it. And I will agree, the first, like, up until the Cyclops, the first 40 minutes, I was really not a fan of. The editing is part of that. I think what holds back this movie the most is kind of Nolan himself in the ways that he, like the restrictions he imposed upon himself. I think a lot of the issues with the editing come from his like staunch commitment to only film with an IMAX camera. Even if that meant it'd have a really hard time focusing on Anne Hathaway and capturing her performance. And even if that meant like you're having really, really short cuts in between things to the point where it did feel like a Marvel movie. It's constantly in a way that I think you mentioned this for Oppenheimer. I didn't notice it being cut like an action movie much in Oppenheimer. I'd like to go back and really try and pay attention to the editing, but typically when a movie's edited well, I can't really tell there are any cuts. In this one, I could feel almost all of them right out the get-go. In the trailers, that is when I'd first kind of gotten exposed to the casting for this movie, and it bugged me a lot. I feel like most of the characters in this movie did not ascend above their actors for me. Like, I was seeing Tom Holland playing what I feel like I love his portrayal of Peter Parker in the Spider-Man movies. I felt like it was kind of a confused, almost tormented version of that. Dumbed down a little bit. I felt like a lot of the performances felt dumbed down outside of Anne Hathaway and Robert Pattinson's. John Leguizamo, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Honestly, like, it was a good performance, but I just heard Sid the Sloth the entire time, so I was just kind of laughing a little bit. Like, I haven't seen much else with him before, so I don't know, that kind of cracked me up. The things that I was really impressed with and walked away out of that first viewing feeling pretty good about the movie was the effects and like the trials of Odysseus and his men. The Cyclops. I remember walking out thinking possibly my favorite scene of this decade is going to be the Cersei bits. What they do with the horror, and I love horror, specifically body horror. Like, I was just blown away by not only those effects, but like the lighting of the hut, the set design, everything in there, including the casting for Cersei, I thought was so awesome. Troy, I thought was really cool. I can't remember.
Samantha Morton.
Samantha Morton. Fantastic.
Troy, I thought was cool. And then, like, obviously the end when he's slaughtering all the suitors. I mostly enjoyed that the first time I saw it. I did feel like it crossed a level of absurdism that was a little cartoony, especially when he's grabbing, like, the axes bound together and swinging them around, and the fact that he's bodying, like, almost 100 dudes in a room with his little bow and arrow that he's flicking around like a Nerf prop, I thought was a little goofy.
My favorite part of that is when Robert Pattinson's just like, swords! Get the shield!
His performance to this day is like my favorite part of that movie. I think he lets out like a gasp right before he's killed. And even in that gasp, I feel like there's a performance and a facial expression being put out there. Funny enough, the performance that bugged me the most the first time was Tom Holland's. It really drove me up a wall. I couldn't get past it being Tom Holland. I felt like it was kind of, and as a big fan of Tom Holland, it was my least favorite performance of his. Granted, I haven't seen some of his other stuff like Cherry. I'm sure he's had worse stuff there, but at least for me, that was his least favorite. And then I'd heard all the IMAX praise. You gotta go see this. The IMAX is the true experience. And I have a lot of gripes with what I've kind of started to learn about IMAX and how they do things. And I do not like the idea of a movie only being shown in the theaters to a select few and then to not ever be shown that way ever again. I think that's a little strange, and I don't like the idea of that. Nevertheless, I bought some IMAX, not 70mm, but some IMAX tickets to go give it a second viewing. I know the pacing of the movie, had my initial gripes, but I was ready. I was ready to give it a second go. And it was after the second one that I really came away not really liking a good chunk of the movie. I think the themes is some of the So I knew I was like somewhat familiar with the story of the Odyssey before, not as much as David, but in having seen it the first time, in between, I did a lot more looking into it. Um, I don't know if there is like a supreme translation of it. To my understanding, Homer wasn't even a guy. It was probably like a lot of different people. There's a lot of different translations. Each one has its own spin on it. And that's what I feel like this movie is. Like, this is Nolan's idea of an Odyssey. But everything that I'm starting to understand the Odyssey to be, I feel like it is pretty divorced from a lot of that, including Zeus's Law. That is why the second time around, I think the biggest thing that bugged me was Odysseus and Matt Damon's character. They did not work for me a lot of that second time. I think his best part of that performance is the end of the movie. When he's got his hood on, I think he does a really good job there. The dialogue is awful throughout the entire movie. I think it is his worst dialogue he's written in any of them. I don't think there's any exceptions. There are some lines that are meant to be serious that are so comedically bad that they will make memes of them until the end of time. And it is a testament to how good Robert Pattinson is as an actor that he can deliver some of those just atrocious lines and make the most out of them. I don't like the idea to have an American accent and make it like a really modern kind of take on this epic. Not that it needs to be like old English or British. I just felt like it was really dumbed down and I didn't appreciate that. I felt like all of the scenes that I wanted to see there, such as the sirens, were way too short. Or the fact where I felt like Nolan didn't care about those as much as he cared about something like a Dunkirk or an Oppenheimer. And he just wanted to kind of get to his idea of really, as you mentioned, Regan, I feel like the Oppenheimer thing works quite well. This does feel a lot like instead of Odysseus being a prideful individual, which is the impression that I get of what he was like in the source material. I don't like the idea of him just being guilt-ridden and feeling bad for what I think is the Trojan War, the Trojan horse and all that. I thought was pretty awesome, and I feel like the whole world thinks that's really awesome. And I feel like the whole point of movie is to deconstruct that as, oh, it's actually really, really bad. And like, you should all be ashamed for it because I think Nolan's kind of black-pilled on humanity for whatever reason. The more I learn about the Odyssey, the more I'm a little disappointed in what could have been. I think he could have taken a lot more time into doing things like a Circe scene or a siren scene. And I really think there was a lot of missed opportunities, some of which come with him cornering himself into IMAX and setting a 3-hour cap for himself, which I think if he had more time or at least spent more of his time away from Ithaca, especially at the beginning of that movie, there's so much stinking time wasted in Ithaca with a lot of scenes that are extremely redundant from my point of view, especially with Anne Hathaway. I feel like she is a record stuck in a loop, repeating the same ideas and same lines again and again, while sometimes I feel like overacting just a little bit. I can safely say I'm not a big fan of Anne Hathaway in any of Nolan's movies. I think she's really good as an actress, but I can't think of a single Anne Hathaway character in Interstellar, this one, or Batman or Dark Knight Rises that I really care for. So I have a lot of issues with the Odyssey. I don't think it's the worst thing ever made. I'm more so apathetic and disappointed with it because I know Nolan is very capable. I think it is very pretty. I think the score was another missed opportunity. Ludwig is a G in everything that he does, and the score is typically like the best part of any Nolan movie, including Tenet. Like some of these stinkers that will get carried by a score. This is a movie where although there are some good moments from the score, I don't feel like it had a chance to really be carried by a score or a character or a performance from me. And I was just really disappointed by that fact. As soon as the idiots online are done debating like the politics of the movie, I'm excited to see how this movie ages in terms of the actual story. And I feel like Emily Wilson's, while I too don't agree with everything that she had to say, but I think it's opening the door to actually having discussions about the stinking movie instead of like the outlying factors in it. And I do
Yeah.
appreciate that. This is, I think, my number 10, or this is
Okay.
11,
Wow.
right
Pretty
under
far down the
Interstellar.
list.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Wow.
Um,
I have a
I
lot
think
more I could
you,
say. You just seem bored.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
I
no,
think
no,
you
no,
said your
no.
point very well, though. I see your criticism, and while I think the movie definitely worked a lot better for
Yeah.
me, I see the gripes that you have with the movie. Yeah, and I think you said
Yeah.
them very articulately. So,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else to add, Regan?
Not really, no. That I think that was I will say that was a great breakdown, Elliot. That was a
Yeah,
very
I'm
solid
glad you
great
could
review.
way
have
to
Great
some.
yeah.
review.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
I
appreciate
Like
your takes
obviously
on that as well.
yeah, like obviously I don't like completely agree with everything you're saying, but
No, it's totally
it's
fine.
it's definitely like I right now I am kind of running off the Odyssey hype.
Yeah.
Like I'm still running off of those fumes, and I will say Odyssey for me is at number three. It's my third favorite Nolan right now, and I definitely do think it will drop down a couple spots as I think about it a little more. And yeah, the one thing I will defend, Tom Holland. I do
I
think he
love Tom
works in this
Holland.
movie.
He's awesome.
He he does a lot of acting with his eyes in
He
this movie,
does.
and
He also
he
seems
it
confused a lot of the movie in a similar vein to how you described Washington guy, where I feel like a lot of the
yeah
times he's a little bit struggling to know what Nolan wants from him, and from a lot of what I've heard with the behind the scenes, Nolan did not do a fantastic job of letting the actors know exactly what he wanted. So it did feel like there were a bunch of different performances that weren't aligned with each other. Like John Bernthal, for instance, I felt like really was kind of defaulting to some of his other roles. And I could see Tom Holland defaulting a little bit to Peter Parker in some of his roles, trying to be more youthful in his 30s, in a way that I don't believe the character should be portrayed as kind of um not that clueless is the right word, but I don't feel like he becomes any more of a leader by the end of the story in a way that he could have. For instance, I think like Odysseus could have tested him as he shows up and he's playing as this hermit and he's like, "Oh, what do you think we should do?" Instead of straight up being like, "All right, here's the plan. I'm back in charge. Like I'm the leader again." Tom Holland never really has a chance to be a leader, and then he's just given the throne. And I feel like, dude, Ithaca is screwed. Like this kid has been walked all over this entire movie, and you've just set him in front of a country that low key hates him, and despises him. And like the Bronze Age sure is over because it is collapsing under this kid. I don't know. And I
that's
I can
funny.
see him trying with his eyes. That is a valid point you bring up. But I think the disservice is not from Tom Holland, but more so the script that he's given and the direction or lack thereof that he's given.
Yeah, yeah. I think we all agree that Nolan, even though we have our issues with his movies, I've enjoyed hearing all of your guys' opinions on them. Uh, is still a good force in the film industry right now. Like
Yeah.
the fact that you can go and see an event movie like The Odyssey in 2026 feels special. We used to get huge historical blockbusters, or not historical, but fantasy blockbusters like Troy every summer. And now something like The
Brad
Odyssey is
Pitt.
now the Odyssey is something of more of a rarity, and I appreciate that he still brings a certain level of auteurship to modern day Hollywood and still can rack in over $1 billion off the box office. So I
Where's
think
this
that's a
at
very
right now?
admirable quality of his. It's over a billion. It's now his highest grossing, unadjusted for inflation.
But like,
Yeah.
where's it likely gonna head? Are there adjusted estimates or
I haven't seen that, but yeah, it's at like 1.8 billion right now, or
1.8?
1.08
Oh,
billion.
okay.
Yeah.
1.08. Yeah.
And I guess real quick before we close out, I just want to ask, what do you guys think is the chances of awards, like Oscar wise, for this
I think
particular
it'll
one?
sweep personally. I don't
Really?
believe it deserves to, but I could definitely see it winning best score. Absolutely, I think a lot of the actor nominees will come for this, for both main actors and supporting. And I think it has a very high chance of winning best picture. I really can't think of anything that
Hmm.
I feel like the industry thinks that is rivaling it. Even though I think a lot of us possibly won't have this be our number one for the year, it might be. For I'm not sure. Are you guys? Is it your favorite movies of the year?
Mine
It
is still Nirvana, the band, the
Okay.
show, the movie is still my favorite movie of the year. But I think this is in second place. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it currently is number one on my list, but there are a few movies coming up that I
Award
feel like
season's
will
not
absolutely
yet begun.
eclipse it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think its chances of winning Best Picture, I would give it, as of this moment, it's too early to determine for sure. I would say about 30% chance. I think
Yeah.
there's a possibility of it winning, but I don't think they'd double dip with Nolan. I don't think they'd give him 2 Oscars in a row for his movies.
I'm closer to
Um, I'll,
60%
I
though.
think, yeah, I think nomination for Best Picture for sure, Best Director. I
Yeah,
think Best Actor
especially
for Matt Damon. I think he'll
cinematography. I
get
think will totally get
Oh,
something.
yeah.
cinematography,
And
Best
that
Special
one, that
Effects.
one I might agree with actually. That is one thing.
Yeah,
Like it's not perfect all the way through. The colors seem really muted at sometimes, which a lot of people complain they want it to be a lot more saturated. I actually liked it for the most part, like the kind of
me
drab
too.
atmosphere that it had, but I think there were some opportunities for it to be. But like I was very impressed by how it looked through and through.
It's a gorgeous movie.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I,
I bet it can make best casting and maybe best stunts,
That
is
one's
my
just
guess.
like, man, I would have loved to see some new faces in there. When every
Yeah,
single person is not only a big actor but really doesn't eclipse their name as an actor, I have a hard time with that. But I feel like the more heat, especially a movie like this gets online and whatnot, I think the higher chances the Academy are to like awarding it for
yeah.
Turbulence.
All I'm
yeah.
saying is The Furious better be nominated for best stunts this year at the Academy Awards. If
Jeez
it's not, I'm going to be
Louise.
very upset.
Yeah. And
Beautiful.
I'm gonna be every time I walk into a house, I'm just gonna be invoking Zeus's law and taking people's food. So
Yeah, apparently
I'm going to
the
be doing. I
Cyclops
should
was
invoke Zeus's
violating
law at the
Zeus's
movie
law.
theater and get
That's
some
a
free
that's
popcorn.
another thing. Like when he goes to all, they kind of try and shoehorn it into stuff like the Cyclops and the Sirens and all those things, and I just don't feel like it fits all of those very well. Like I feel like it's a little bit of a stretch for a lot of them. Like even Cersei's, I was like, I like that scene in isolation, but in the context of Zeus's law, I feel like you lose a lot of the what's good about it. But oh well,
Yeah. But we should probably wrap up. This was a lot of fun, guys.
good time.
Thanks for doing this. This has been a long time in the making. It's tough to align our schedules with all the hours that we've been working and whatnot,
And
but
I'm hoping it all
this is a
went
good time.
through because I haven't done it on one screen before. So like I've not left this page. I'm hoping it's still recording and it didn't run into any
Yeah,
issues, but
sweet. But
fingers crossed,
yeah,
please.
this was a lot of fun, guys. We'll see you on the next episode then.
okay.
Come up with something fun for the next one.
Goodbye. All right.
Goodbye.
I'm going to end the recording.